Progress is challenging for women, Indigenous peoples, and youth. We face obstacles that restrict land ownership and use. Of note, some of these obstacles come from so-called conservation efforts that ultimately function as land grabs. Agroecology is uniquely well-suited as a response to the, quote, triple planetary crisis of climate catastrophe, pollution, and biodiversity loss. This takes into account and remedies the disproportionate harms industrial agriculture has on Indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, and gender-diverse peoples. Moving towards a just and fair transition for Indigenous people, women, and children is one avenue to address agriculture inequality. We work towards a transition that addresses this inequality. We expose false solutions to the climate crisis and place people at the center of the struggle for climate justice. Investment into the agri-food systems is crucial. However, climate finance cannot depend on carbon markets for a source of finance for climate-resilient agriculture. We must be innovative and creative in finance solutions for agriculture that don't exacerbate the climate crisis worse than it already is. Crucially, a shift from focus on food security to food sovereignty is necessary to create sustainable, equitable food systems. In conclusion, this highlights the interconnection between autonomy over our territories and autonomy over food choices. It goes beyond just do we have enough to survive to focusing on thriving through reclamation and traditional knowledges and sciences. Food sovereignty inherently puts us in control of the growth, management, and trade of our food rather than just passive recipients of aid delivered by government actors. It allows us to implement traditional practices even when they may be at odds with the desires of governments. I'll give an example. In my community on the Flathead Reservation, forced dependence on a Western diet of processed sugar and flour, a radical change from a traditional diet of subsistence, gathering and consuming of a diet of berries, roots, and wild game like elk, deer, and buffalo has impacted the health of our tribal members. The Western colonial diet is the main cause of diabetes and other serious health issues. Within the last 10 years, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes have started a food sovereignty program. Tribal citizens were given a poll on what they needed to change their diet from processed sugars and flours. The nation then made a community effort to educate their members on traditional foods. These seasonal trips were made to harvest traditional roots and medicines. Elders provided knowledge on how to harvest without taking too much and destroying the natural habitats of roots and berries. Tribal members are taught how to traditionally preserve the roots, berries, and meats for long-term storage. In the last 5 years, this resurgence in traditional knowledge and practice has decreased rates of diabetes and other health issues related to food allergies. Globally, fossil fuel intensive industrial, agricultural, mining projects and other extractive activities have caused land degradation through direct impacts and through their role in driving climate change in itself, a major and growing contributor to desertification, erosion, and other forms of land degradation. Some 80% of global arable lands are now affected by land degradation, trapping more than 1.3 billion food producers on unproductive land. A specific case study in Brazil examines the relationship between Indigenous peoples and the land and how colonization has harmed their traditional food systems. Threats include the monoculture of crops, seed homogeneity, and proliferation of synthetic pesticides, 99% of which are created from petroleum hydrocarbon feedstocks. There will be no transition away from fossil fuels without embracing alternatives to synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. I want to thank the Sharm el-Sheikh Joint Working Group. This has been a very educational and interactive workshop for the last 2 years, and I appreciate the time that's given to observers. Thank you.